This is a special occasion, all of us. Research launch. Research launch is a researcher space established in some foreign universities. So this is the first experience in Sri Lanka. So you're warmly welcome to the research launch. First of all, we are extremely grateful to the Dean FGS, Professor Ajit Sir, for guiding and encouraging us to open doors to the research launch. Dear students, this is a meeting space for experts and students. Now you hear two expert talks. Then panel discussion comments. You can ask any questions there. You can share your views as well. So our theme is starting a research project, getting off the ground. So without wasting much time, let me introduce the first expert in today's research launch, Dr. Neranga Abeyasinghe. Dr. Neranga Abeyasinghe, he graduated from the University of Colombo as the top of his class, specializing in chemistry. He earned his PhD from the University of Michigan, USA. Now he's a senior lecturer at the Department of Chemistry, University of Colombo, and engaged in many research activities. Raman microscopy, spectroscopy, computational and material research, discovering new science and investigating material for future application. Moreover, he spearheaded a head trials grant to improve the socio-emotional skills and English language skills of the undergraduates. He started an interviewing activity of eminent scientists where the scientists such as Nobel laureates and highly accomplished researchers are interviewed by his students. Dear sir, research launch is yours to share your knowledge with our students.
All right. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sounds good. So I'll try to share the slides with you. Hope you can see the slides now. Okay, excellent. All right. Thanks a lot for the kind introduction, Dr. Nayani, and thanks a lot for Faculty of Graduate Studies and University Library of University of Moratul, Professor Ajit Diabis and Dr. Nayani for the kind invitation, and Ms. Kanchana for the suggestion. So basically, in this first of its kind research lounge, we have focused on one specific theme, and we'll actually plan to do a discussion after I give my talk. Probably for the next 20 minutes, I will be discussing about several parts that are related to starting off a research project, how to think about your research project as a postgraduate student, and how you would be able to use this knowledge that you're going to gain today to have a significant impact in your work. Right. So I will start with a very nice picture. You guys probably are familiar with this two-dimensional diagram, which is known as the periodic table. But there's an additional dimension that you can find, which you probably may not have seen before. So this additional dimension is actually coming from cluster science or cluster chemistry, I would say. So in cluster sciences, what people have found was that when you add several atoms of the same identity, let's say aluminum, gold, silver, when you add several atoms and when you cluster them up, these materials tend to show unusual properties compared to their bulk material. For example, compared to bulk gold, like what you wear, like a gold necklace or gold ring, or compared to gold atoms. Gold clusters or gold nanoclusters seem to show totally different properties. And because of that, people started investigating this area, and it is a totally new dimension to investigate materials. So I have investigated some of those materials in some of my previous projects, and I have investigated isolated nanoclusters, specifically AU25, and also silver nanoclusters that serve as nanobeacons that are attached to DNA molecules. So you can isolate or locate DNA molecules by using fluorescence. And also I was involved in photovoltaic materials, specifically intramolecular singlet fission. And to date, this is the smallest molecule that has been investigated, that has been discovered to show intramolecular singlet fission. And there are a lot of interesting stories related to those findings and research. And if you have time, we'll definitely be able to discuss. So today is around us. We should first think about why do we really conduct, write and publish research, and how to identify the impact your work. And then finally, I would like to introduce you to a very simple but very powerful and useful document, which we call as the outlining document or the outline document, which can be used to plan, organize, and publish your research work. All right, so first of all, I would like to start with a small question. So I'm going to pose it to you. You guys can unmute your microphones, or you can use the chat box and give the answers. So why do we really conduct, write and publish research? Yeah, anyone? Yeah, why do we conduct or publish research? Yeah. Anyone? To give it a try?
We write research to communicate the information that we have found.
Sounds good. Okay, so communicate information, communicate something that you have found through your research. Anything else? Excellent. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah. Anyone? All right. Yeah. One good example is the one that was given. That's basically to disseminate knowledge, right? So there are some points that I have identified. So you can also think whether you came up with those ideas when I asked this question. So let's have a look at those points. So the first thing is, of course, to disseminate, to find and disseminate new knowledge and understanding. So that's the first thing, right? That came to my mind, of course. And then second, to have a positive impact on science world. I mean, this should not be confused with the impact factor or the H index. We'll, if we have time, we can discuss about that also. And then to get promoted, climb up the ladder. Maybe someone had that idea. To graduate, of course, you have to graduate and you may have to submit thesis, but I think there are people famous that have a work to write. Specifically, you'll be able to organize your work, right? So, all right. So these are some of the things that could come to someone's mind. But I think the most important thing that we really do work is to have a positive impact on science or in your field or on the world, right? So this term thinking skills, because they don't really require that much of intellectual power or capacity. So they are known as lower order thinking skills, right? But if you really want to solve problems, if you want to really address certain issues in the world, if you want to find solutions to problems, then you should come up with creative ideas, right? So basically, you should have these skills like the ability to create or synthesize, to evaluate things. So that's basically, those are known as high order thinking skills. So in research, you actually focusing that area when you think about it. It doesn't mean that you should not have the other skills, but synthesis, the skills that are related to synthesis and creativity are also so important that we should know how to do it. Right? So that those are some of the skills that you will be developing through these research activities. So what I would like to give as advice is if you're really going to start a research project, start with a problem that you would like to solve and that will have an impact on the field, on the society. And that's one of the most important things, identifying that problem. And then the second most important thing is be fearless, because, we are always fearing of failure, but in reality, failure is a necessity. Okay, you'll learn that in the future as well, but that's a very important thing. So being fearless and going after that impact, doing a service and having an impact on the science, on the world, on your field is so important, right? So that must be the focus. And now let's say that you want to have an impact. Then there's another very important concept that comes into my mind that is known as backwash. Now, backwash is basically telling us something very important. That is, people don't learn what they are really taught. They learn only what they are assessed. Okay, what do you mean by that? Well, if you are being assessed in a specific way, if you are given certain appraisals or assessments, you incentivize certain types of behaviors and you disincentivize certain other behaviors. And this is the reality in the world. So in your case, then you have to think, okay, what kind of research you are going to become independent scientists? What I think is, in your research, what you are really learn is how to learn, right? Once you have learned how to learn, you'll be using those skills to learn so many new skills so that you can really tackle any new problem that comes in your way, right? So because of that, better to focus on the accomplishments and having an impact than on the accolades, okay? So with that in mind, then let's try to see how we can really assess the impact. Now, if you had an impact through your research, what kind of things would happen down the line, right? That's how you have to think about it. So if you have an impact, if you had an impact, it will definitely fundamentally change or improve the way scientific thinking is done, or a specific technique or a method is applied, or how the public benefits from the field, or the field itself will be more popular over time because of its applications. And also, not only those things, also when you think about this entire process, in the long term, you'll be developing intellectual capital. So you'll be developing scientists or problem solvers that will be able to have a positive impact in the world. Okay, so how to identify the impact of your work? That's the question, right? That's a very interesting question. So I would like to look at that question in this way. Now, there are two ways of looking at the work that you do. On the one hand, that is basically the bird's eye view. Now, let's say we have a bird flying above a specific terrain, and you have certain mountains, you have some trees and rivers flowing, some animals are hovering around or walking around, and so you can see the entire picture, right? That's basically the bird's eye view. So it's a generalized or general view, and it's very important to understand how the public think and how to approach public, right? And at the same time, as a scientist, you should know, like when you think about the impact, you should know that you should have the bird's eye view. But at the same time, when you're doing science, you cannot have that impact in the entire landscape in the bird's eye view, right? You will be focusing on a specific project, specific problem or set of problems. And in that case, you'll be developing the technical skills that are necessary to address those issues in that specific domain. And you'll be an expert in that area. So I would like to call it the worm's view. So if you are a good scientist, as you develop, you'll have to understand both the bird's eye view and the worm's view, and you should be able to exchange ideas between the worm's view and the bird's eye view. That's how you do the learning and have the impact that you have to have. So two advices that can be given is that you have to think like a good reviewer or a critic who is concerned with the details, because the worm's view is very important when it comes to the details. But at the same time, think like a good presenter or a teacher who also sees the bird's eye view, the general picture or the overall impact of what you do. Okay. So with that, we can move on to the final portion, actually. That's basically about a powerful tool that you can do, that you can use to have impact through your research and through your presentations, in general, in organizing your stuff, right? So this is known as the outlining document or the outline. Basically, this was introduced by George Whitesides at Harvard University, and he's a very famous scientist. You can look up his profile, and this is something that he had been using for a long time in his research group. So when you think about the entire picture, when you generate an outline, it is very helpful to start to plan things, right? When you're planning your research work, that is right at the beginning, and as you progress, and when you are ready to publish your work, and when you are writing your paper, the manuscript, this outline document is going to be very useful. So just to have a look at some of the questions that are shown here. So first thing is, why did I really do this work? Or why am I really going to do this work? If you're in the planning phase, right? And what does it really mean, when it comes to that particular work? How is it going to have an impact? What kind of an impact it's going to have? And then what hypotheses are you going to test? And what kind of experiments or methods you are going to use to test those hypotheses? And then what were the results? And who cares? Who cares is basically related to the bird's eye view, or the general picture, right? And then, of course, you will have figures and equations as you progress in your research work. You'll have to generate the figures and pictures and have an idea, like an overall idea. And this document can be used when you're communicating with your PI or the research advisor or the supervisor. And you can revise that work, right? The outline document can be revised. So basically, depending on the feedback you get, this will be a communication device as well with your advisor, and eventually you'll be basically repeating and generating a lot of outline documents, and towards the end you'll be ready to prepare a paper. So I'll give you a small example that I have put on a Google document for which you will receive the link later on. So I'm just going to share that document to show that sample. Okay. All right. So I have prepared two outline documents at two phases, right at the beginning, when you're planning, and of course, midway. So now let's say you are in the planning phase, then you discuss with your supervisor, and you can come up with an outline document like this. So see, this is going to be only one page. Now, this is basically, I have prepared this on our Goal 25 nanoclusters. So when you really begin your work, you try to find out why these clusters are so important, and what kind of information are yet to be found, what kind of discoveries are to be made, and what kind of an impact it's going to have. So that's going to be why am I doing this work question, right? You'll be trying to answer that question. And if we go down, and then what does it mean? So now in this case, Goal 25 nanoclusters have shown 0.5 million cross-section. Just to let you know, a good chromophore would be about 300 GM. So it's a very large number. But when you isolate them on surface, what kind of an impact would it have? Would it go up, go down? What kind of changes would be there, and how would it have an impact? And then hypothesis will be basically the cross-section will go up, and the resolution will be like below 50 nanometers. So the previous resolution was about 175, right? And what kind of approaches? You use imaging techniques, and then anticipated results. So in this particular case, Anticipated results means the hypothesis themselves, because based on the hypothesis, you will have specific results. But that doesn't mean you should expect those results. You should do the experiment independently, because there are a lot of interesting discoveries to be made in the process, and you are going to make a lot of mistakes, and don't worry about it. And then if you are in the midway, so just to give you an example how this might evolve. Now, when you're trying to get the image, you'll have some trouble, and you'll think, okay, can I really get a signal from an aggregate, let alone from a single cluster, right? So single cluster is, we are trying to investigate a single cluster, but sometimes you can't get the signal even. Then you have to go to an aggregate and try to get the signal from that first, right? And then based on that, the laser could be broken or instrument is broken, and you have to fix that. Sometimes you have to find more optimized methods, because if you are working at the edge, you'll have to find new methods, right? And then eventually you'll come up with results. Okay, the aggregate response is there. Now let's go and do the single cluster response. Okay, so and over time figures will be generated. But one very important thing is make sure to have a summary or abstract at the end, right? Why is it important? Because your PI will be somewhat busy in certain situations. So the entire summary should be able to tell what kind of interesting progress that had been made in the meantime, right? So that's about a half a page to 1 page summary, which eventually can be used to write down your thesis as well as research paper. Okay, so those are 2 examples that I can share with you. I'll send you the links to you. And if we go back to the end of the discussion, so basically there will be 3 portions in an outline. The introduction, that is basically asking the why question. Why am I really doing it? What are the important motivations? And then the results, discussion, and then finally conclusions. So towards the end of the research projects, you will have a lot of material available, and this outline document can be used to generate papers. And the other interesting thing is, as you go along, there could be a lot of offshoots that will be generated, and we can discuss if we have some time on those as well. So then I have some data. I can come back to this. Now, let's say towards the end, you will have figures, and then of course, based on some data, you'll be able to generate more figures to interpret what's really happening there. And for each figure, make sure to have a detailed caption, right, which you can change later on. And then finally, all of these things can be done when you're starting your research project. You must do the literature survey. So Dr. Namali will be giving you the talk on the literature survey, and basically that will set the background for you to get started with all of these documents as well as preparing for your project. Okay, so at the end, an abstract that I have talked about would be considered as a trailer of a movie. Now, if you so abstract is going to address the general audience. You have to start with the bird's eye view, and then gradually come to the worm's view and give more details, and then finish with an impact statement, which is again a bird's eye view. Okay, so I'll discuss those examples during the discussion time, and good luck with your research work. And if you happen to have any questions, we can do the discussion after Dr. Namali's talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your valuable ideas, sir. Next, I would like to introduce our second expert in today's research launch. She is Dr. Namali Suraveda. Dr. Namali Suraveda is a senior lecturer and former head of the Department of Library and Information Science, University of Kelaniya. She is also director of the Interfaculty Center for Coordinating the Modular System at University of Kelaniya. Earned her PhD in Information Management in 2015 from the School of Information Management at Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. She delivered a number of keynote speeches at national and international conferences. She has won a number of research paper awards for her research publication at national and international conferences. Dear Madam, may I respectfully invite you to enrich our students' knowledge with your expertise.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Naini, and thank you, Dr. Niranga, for your informative session as well as introductory session details given by the Dr. Naini as well for informative. Okay, so yeah, so my task is to discuss about the how to do literature review and also how you can find the relevant literature that you want to find out related information, data for your research. Okay, so we'll start from there and here we go. So today I would like to introduce a kind of what we can call as a roadmap for a literature review. And as you can see from the screen, it includes like 9 steps. And without considering those 9 steps and so on, that students and the researchers always see literature review as a kind of headache. Right, so you won't be able to get those kind of headache if you can really familiar with this process very simple way. Right, I'll show you how you can start and then how you can end up with the relevant articles, and then how you can build up your research process a very informative way, and how you could use those literature in order to support your study. Right, okay, so I'm sorry for the noisy coming from the other side. And yeah, as you can see from this screen, I think Dr. Niranga already discussed about the problem formulation and everything. So in order to conduct your research, in order to start your research project, yeah, it's good to have your kind of problem or research topic with you. Because if you want to find out the literature, that means it's a kind of purposeful one, right? It's a kind of purposeful way to find the relevant literature for your research, right? So then you have to come up with the research problem, and then you need to develop research terms and so on. So I'm not going to introduce these 9 steps right now. I'll bring you to all these steps one by one. Okay, so we will move to the first step. That's called develop your search term. So just imagine what is your request. For example, what you are looking for, right? What you are looking for your research. So if you have that research topic or research problem at your hand, then figure out what you want to find out. So then you have the research problem. So I have given here one example. Yes, just assume that I want to do a research maybe based on the wage gap for women in Sri Lanka. So nowadays also it's really important for this scenario, right? Because we are in the economic crisis, health crisis, there are lots of things going on. So there are lots of research problem start from the society as well. So just assume that if someone's doing this kind of research or whatever, just assume that you have the research topic or the research problem, right? So then what next? So normally, if you are not going to find out all this literature from the research database first, maybe you may just figure out some of the information, just Google it, right? So that's the first basic step. But in order to conduct the academic research, we are not recommending to search all these statement or the keywords to search from the Google general site. But at least if you can find out all this information from Google Scholar, that would be great, because at least that those articles will be already published by the scholars, right? So then we are not stopping from that end. We are bringing you to the other step as a systematic way to doing that one as a quality research, right? So then what will be the next step? So you need to find out the keywords from your research topic or your research problem in order to find relevant literature from your databases, right? So what we can do, the step 1 will be find your keywords. So according to my examples, those keywords will be the wage gap, women, Sri Lanka, right? And then step 2 will be, so you want to expand your keywords. That means you need to find out relevant synonyms and related words related to that key terms, right? For example, if you can find out online thesaurus to find out other synonyms for your keywords, that would be great. So you have lots of choices to search. And in that case, so I'll show you how I'm going to figure out my research, this issue that I already took as an example, right? So the wage. So then first I can expand the key terms. For example, as you can see from the screen, the wage, we can find out different synonyms saying compensation, earnings, incomes, so on. And gap, it may be a difference, it may be inequality, disparity, and women, we can use synonyms like gender, female, and Sri Lanka, even we can call Lanka or maybe Ceylon if it is, if we are looking for some of the historical articles as well, right? And this is how you need to find different synonyms to your keywords. Why it is really important? That because just assume that we are looking for wage, the key terms of the wage, and we are looking for some of the relevant literature for this research problem. But you need to make sure that the wage, it doesn't mean that all the researchers in the world, they have used this term. So that's why we require synonyms. So if you can find out different synonyms as much as possible, then you can expand lots of relevant articles from your databases, right? And the next step will be, so you can find out, expand the concepts. So you already have the expand keywords, and now you can expand the concept. For example, the wage, we can expand as a discrimination, right? And also the gap is like a bias, or maybe the women is looking at the sexism, and Lanka, it's kind of social context, it's maybe the workplace, something like that, right? So then your searching options, it's not going to be finished right now. So now you are ready to search because you have the research problem or research topic, and you have figured out what are the keywords, and then you expanded the keywords, and then you expand the concepts even. So you have clear idea about what you are looking for, you know about your information that you want, right? And then you can move into find information. So especially in these days, physically to access the libraries and other information centers would be really problematic. But as researchers, we always have an online environment to access. So then you can access online information sources. I know that from the University of Moratuwa, they have provided wonderful databases and wonderful informations from their libraries and their online platforms. So you can access them, right? So what you can do, you can access basic search engines, as I said, for example, like SSRN, or if not, a Microsoft Academic Search, right? And then you can also find out ebooks, e-journals, e-databases, and e-repositories from your own university library, right? So then just make sure that you have figured out all the keywords and then bring them to these online platform, right? And again, when you find out all this information, please make sure that to use some of the search strategies, because you and right, to make sure that yes, I have some sort of search strategies that I have used. So those kind of strategies, tactics, you need to be used, right? For example, we have a couple of search strategies. I hope already those information have been shared from your library, but just to refresh yourself, right? So you can use like Boolean operators. So they are some of the search operators. You can use Boolean operators. They are three folds, like and or not. So you can bring an operator to search results to include the both terms. For example, if you need to find out maybe women's income in Sri Lankan context, so you can bring all these two key terms together, right? Or maybe you can use O, So that results will include only one or both terms, right? If you use not operator, then it includes only one word. But if you figuring out, like for example, wage, not women, that means you will find all to figure out. So how I am going to search information from the databases, because it's really important to look at your research scenario, what's going on, what's the research gap, and so on. And also there are proximity operators, so you can use near and next operators. So those information, those strategies can be used, and also other sort options. If you use the databases, you can always sort out your information based on your title, based on your keywords, type of publication, relevance, according to author, publication date, publication year, and so on. Not only that, we can also use wildcards. So that calls, we can have a right-hand truncation. For example, we can use, if you are using the computer word, so you can use COMP, and then we can use the truncation. It means we expect all the terms that start from COMP, right? So likewise, those strategies need to be used to find out full relevant articles for your research process, right? Okay, so I hope you are already familiar with these things. So I will move to the next one. Also, bases that's from EBSCOhost as well as Emerald Insight. So if you are going to search those information from those databases, you can actually click on the search field, and then you can select the field, that sorting options, and you can use some of the Boolean operators from there and search accordingly to get the relevant articles, relevant literature for your study, right? Okay, so then the next important thing is, whatever the strategies that you have used to find out information, find out literature, so what are the best suitable sources that you are looking for, right? So basically what we recommend always to go for the original sources or primary sources. So you can actually access peer-reviewed journal articles, because that's the scholarly written articles. So it recommends always that research process and everything, and also it's gone through the peer. So three choices like this. So there will be empirical peer-reviewed journal articles as well as theoretical journal articles. Not only that, there will be literature-reviewed journal articles as well. So just assume that based on your research project, you want to see some of the research articles that previously done, and you go through one by one. So empirical peer-reviewed journal articles, as you can see from this screen, it shows you the research process. So what are their research questions, what are their research process that they have taken, how they have conducted literature review, and what are the research methodology they have used, how they have analyzed and come up to the conclusion and recommendation. So that sort of order will show you from those peer-reviewed journal articles. So from A to Z, that research process can be identified. And if you want to look at those papers, do not focus on everywhere, just focus on empirical peer-reviewed journal articles. So that process, it's so quick, and you can get the relevant information or the relevant literature. And the second type of article, journal articles or peer-reviewed journal article, will be theoretical journal articles. I know that lots of maybe the engineering side or the other subject disciplines that you are following, so that require lots of theoretical foundations. Then it's not necessary to go always find all the information through empirical peer-reviewed journal articles. So instead of that, you can focus on finding theoretical journal article. For example, if I'm really keen about the technology acceptance models, so these days we are really using online education and so on. So if one of you are really keen about access to journal articles that relevant to different theories, right? So don't waste your time. Just focus on downloading or maybe accessing theoretical journal articles. So if I'm talking about the technology acceptance model, so I can go through all the theoretical journal articles that published on TAM, right? So I'm not going to waste my time. So it's really important as a researcher to move forward to go and grab your correct research articles in a very timely manner without wasting your time. And the next option will be, so if you want to focus on literature review journal articles, right? So some of the researchers, they really want to see what are the literature review papers published on relevant research area, right? Research field, because that again gives you the idea about what are the relevant literature related to my research topic or my research problem, right? That enhance your existing understanding into another level. So then before I move into the other steps, I will quickly show you examples of these three papers. Okay, so I'll show you quickly. Right. Here we go. Then it will give you the nice understanding, right? So you can see this is one of the examples to show the empirical peer review journal article. So you can see there's a kind of your research topic. You can see the research topic and also the authors. So it start from the abstract and the introduction. So all the steps there, right? The literature review part and also the methodology. So they have taken, right? And also the data analysis plan, data and the sample, and the analysis results and discussion and so on. So this empirical peer review journal article shows you the research process from A to Z. So if you, as a researcher, if you're really keen to go through such articles, you can quickly go and access those kind of peer review journal. Right out the tech, so we can find out those articles. It's based on you. So whatever the theory that you want to figure out, so you need to focus on theoretical peer review journal articles rather than empirical or the systematic literature review, right? So it's really based on the theory. So they will review the theory along with the other theories, and they will see what are the contradictions going on, what are the outputs, outcomes, and what will be the next, and so on. So all the details related to the particular theory can be learned from such theory, and it will improve your research process as well. So you can take relevant component from there. And the other paper type that I have discussed about the literature review papers, literature review, peer review journal articles. So this is another venue, another opportunity for you as a researcher, because if you also conduct the systematic literature review for your research project, so there will be the publication process as well. For you, you can actually publish your literature review chapter as a systematic literature review paper later on, right? Because it's one way of doing things. Because for example, if a systematic literature review, or it's the paper is based on literature review part, mean that process show you from A to Z how that researcher has conducted the literature review from beginning to end, and what they have covered and what the output is, right? Based on the particular area. And as you can see from the screen, that they are talking about technology acceptance model, and you can see, I'll quickly show you the process they have taken. See, I hope you can see properly. Like this. So you can see they have used the EBSCO databases, and this is how they have access. And also after all the searching, they have received 375 articles, and from them, they can see 242 duplicates, right? They have been removed, and then only 33 articles remain. And from there, again, 120 articles they have used because they have removed 5 for different purposes. Like that, there is a particular process they have used to conduct the systematic literature review. So sometimes we need to conduct those kind of literature review in order to get the clear understanding for your research project or to understand about the particular phenomenon for your research process. And again, it has a 2 way of doing things. That one is publishing your research, the thesis or the dissertation, and other thing is you can actually have a publication output as a result of the thesis for the systematic literature review paper, right? So those are one of the examples. Why I focused all these things, because yeah, I'll share this one again, because I know otherwise all the students or maybe all the researchers, they take long time to find out relevant articles, relevant literature for your project. So you need to be very clear about what you are looking for and what kind of information, what kind of literature that you want to follow up, right? Okay, here we go. And the next step of the roadmap to the literature review is read the abstract. That because after you searching all the information, then you need to figure out, okay, what will be the correct or the relevant literature for my study. So as you can see from the systematic literature review, although they have finalized with 375 articles, again, they have minimized that into the 133 articles. That because other stuff are unwanted. So those things can be checked by looking at the abstract and the content, whether it is covering all the information that you want and so on. So you can go through abstract, introduction section, or maybe the method, finding section, discussion, conclusion, and also you can access through reference as well. And the next step again will be the summarize in the paragraph format. And I'm not going to go in detail for this process to other steps of the roadmap, that because if you are using I called online reference management tool, so those things can be done very easily, right? So we no need to do manual process. So you can have a, you can read the paper, and at the same time you can get the notes, you can add the tags, you can add keywords and so on. And when you start writing, and when you start developing themes and developing literature review chapter step by step, and then identifying the research gap and so on, so it will help that online reference management, you can help to get the related articles together and then start writing. Okay, so the sixth one will be the creating thematically focused table. So if you are doing it manually, or if you are doing it Word or by using Excel process or something like that, it will okay. But again, if you are using online reference management tool, you don't need to really worry about the thematic focused data and table summarized information. You can do it through the system. Right? So if you are to see, to find out, okay, according to this theme, so these are the articles that really supports that theme, and then what are the other contradictions so who said what and why, so why are the gap and so on. Okay, right. And then as Dr. Niranga summarized earlier, so how we are going to organize your paper, organize your literature review chapter or something like that. So it's based on different approaches, based on your subject discipline as well, based on your research process. And as you can see from here, there will be different steps, areas, structures. For example, 1 to 4, you can use descriptive organizational structure or chronological structure. Chronological structure, it linked with date and times. So it's like a historical approach. If you're not really keen about that one, so you can use chronological or thematic or maybe methodological, theoretical approaches. It depends, right? And also you can see that if it is a descriptive, so it looks like this. And if it is a chronological, so it looks like this kind of the structure. And again, the writing strategy. So it would be really nice to have a main idea, evidence, and show the analysis and also linked with your research, why it is really important, where the gap, and why it has been really important for my study and so on. Okay, like that. And the final stage will be finalize the first draft and then edit and proof the final draft. So it's really about the literature review process, and then the organizing the references is really important. That's why I said earlier, it's really important to use the online reference management tool, or at least the Word reference to organize your reference list for your thesis, right, as a researcher, because we don't need to do manually anymore. So it will really help as a researcher to figure out and find out all the information in a very quick manner. So this is what I focused on from step 1 to step 3, because that's where the base of the literature review start from. So if you can follow up those steps would be really nice. And mainly you need to be focused on your requirement, your relevant literature, what you are looking for, and then start searching without wasting your time. So if you
into this research launch. Now I would like to open the floor for our dear students to raise any questions you have to our eminent panelist. Dr. Niranga, sir, one of our students has posed a question. What is the role of competition when doing high impact research?
Yes. So actually, we can do a small experiment and see that. So this is actually an experiment done by Pasi Sahlberg. He basically was one of the people who were involved in the pioneering changes that happened in the Finnish education system. So I'm just going to do that experiment, and your active participation will be very useful. So I'll quickly go about the role of an effect it can have. So I think now I will need your active participation. So make sure to turn on your or unmute your microphones when you're participating, students. So basically the plan is this. I'm going to show you some numbers, and all what you have to do is just tell that number aloud. Okay. So let me first I'm calibrating. So let's see whether you can say that. So you have to unmute the mic and say what that number is. So we are going to introduce competition gradually. Please go ahead. Yeah.
1,000.
1,000. Okay. Yeah. Others. So you have to unmute the mic. Okay. Unmute the mic and do it. Okay. So all right. So let's do it this way. Now you can see this number, and when I show another number, add that number to the previous one. So what I'm looking for now is the sum. Okay, sum of the two numbers. So the numbers we have.
1,040.
Okay. Can we? Yeah. Can I hear like more? Yeah. Can I hear from more? Because we need to introduce the competition like gradually. So I need to
1,040.
Okay. Okay. So make sure to have the microphones unmuted, because in a competitive environment you will have to respond quickly. So let me quickly. Yeah. How about this?
2,040.
2,040.
Okay. So let's see if this works now. So let's do it and let's see whether you can tell the number. Yeah.
1,040.
2,040.
Okay, right. So I think the calibration is now ready. Now we have to incorporate some competition. Okay, let's now don't fear. Now you can unmute the mic and everyone can answer. So now we know how to do this. Now there's a small competitive element I'm going to put. You have to give the answer before the other people give the answer. Okay, that's the competitive aspect. So you are going to give the answer before others give the answer, right? Let's see if that works. Okay. Yeah.
1000.
1000,
1040.
2040, 2040,
Okay. I can hear from part of you. Like, let's see if everyone can contribute.
1000,
1000. 1040.
1040,
2040.
40,
2070.
70, 3070,
20.
3090, 4090, 5000.
Okay.
Ah.
What happened? What happened? All right. So you can see there's something went wrong, right? Because this is like a simple addition. So so you can see when you incorporate the competitive aspect, some accuracy could be lost in the process if you are not fully focused on the actual impact, actual effect that your original and ethical work can have, right? So because of that, you have to keep in mind that competition is a very it's a double-edged sword. You have to know how to use it. Okay, so never compensate accuracy over competition. So keep that in mind when you think about competition and having an impact. I hope that was helpful. Yeah. So any other questions?
Can I ask a question? From Dr.
Yes, please. Yes, Kansha, yes, please.
Yeah, you talked about when writing an abstract, you said it's important to go from this worm's weave to bird's eye weave.
Correct.
Can you explain it a bit, please?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go to an example. Once again, we can, because I had that, but I thought that we should use this in the discussion. So when you think about the abstract writing aspect, yeah. So when you think about abstract writing, now the abstract is targeting a broader audience usually, right? Not only the people who are in the field, because sometimes your work could have a huge impact on a larger population, right? And because of that, you always have to keep in mind that you start with the bird's eye view, right? In the abstract, right at the beginning, you start with a statement that can draw, that will be visualized or observed as a general person as an important statement, right? Okay, this is how it's going to be helpful to me. So let me read the rest of the sentences, right? And then you gradually discuss your details. That's the worm's view, right? When you are discussing the worms, you're actually discussing the details of your methodology or the research outcomes or the results and data. And then once you have given the impact of those detailed aspects in the field or in your research work, then eventually again, you have to come back to the impact statement, right? So the final statement will also be an impact statement. So once again, you finish with the bird's eye view. You start with the bird's eye view and narrow it down and get to more details basically, and then again make it broader. Just to give you an example, now here in the first portion, so you can see the new approaches in molecular nanoscopy are greatly desired for interrogation of biological, organic, inorganic objects with sizes below the diffraction limit. So this is basically defining the problem for a broader audience than the ones that are reading. And then we go into more details. Okay, this is the particular technique, ENSOM, near field microscopy, that was used to investigate these 25 gold atom clusters. And then those cross sections and how it was done, basically how the nanoclusters were isolated on a substrate and how they were investigated using 2-photon absorption, right? And so those are all details, worm sweep, right? And then eventually towards the end, this is the first reported optical study. So basically, we discussed the impact again. The first reported optical study of monolayer protected clusters that are going to show promising opportunities in spectroscopy, right? And in bioimaging, in data storage, in diagnostics, in sensing. Okay, so like that. So again, data storage, diagnostics, ultrasensitive sensing, and that particular result is going to have an impact on a broader field again. So start with bird's eye view, go through the worm sieve, and again finish with that impact statement, which is the bird's eye view. Hope that is clear.
Yes, thank you.
Let's see.
So would you like to share it with our students for the benefit?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I will be able to send the link of that and I'll keep it. So basically, at the beginning, it's just a plan, right? So you go and talk to your advisor or research supervisor, and then the advisor says, okay, this is what we are really interested in doing, and this is what you are interested in doing from what I understand. So let's think about this kind of a problem. Let's think about tackling this kind of a problem or solving this problem, right? And then based on that, you write down the background and why am I really going to do this kind of research and what kind of impact it is going to have, right? That's the first portion of the outline document. That's the first part, right? And then what does it mean? What kind of an impact is it going to have? So then hypothesis is basically, now when you're trying to tackle that problem, what kind of questions will be answered and in what way, what kind of anticipated results you would have. And based on that, you would have to design experiments or design ways of searching, reviewing, right? So that's basically the plan, right? Then when you do the research or as you go along, what happens is now you come across certain things that you have not anticipated, right? For example, I'll give one example here. That is for AU25. So we thought, like, since in solution phase, the cross section is very high, so we are going to see the signal right away. So we went ahead and did the experiment, because in the solution phase, in solution, when the clusters are dissolved in solution, we could see the signal very clearly. But the issue is now in solution phase, that signal is coming from a large number, like millions and zillions of clusters, right? But when it comes to isolated clusters, the signal is very weak. So you can't easily detect it. So what we found was, okay, before we go and find the single cluster, let us go and find the image for a large aggregate. That is, aggregate means you have one cluster like that, and then another cluster. So the clusters are aggregated. A lot of AU25 clusters are aggregated. It's like a mountain, right? Now you have a higher probability of getting the signal. So you have to change the way of thinking about the problem before we get to a single cluster, right? We have to get the signal first. So depending on the way it progresses, you will come across unforeseen problems sometimes, and then you have to solve them, right? And that's how you get things done in the real world. And then based on that understanding, then you have to think about the approaches and the methods, right? You have to change the approach. So you have to find, how can we really couple the laser to the device, and how good the quality should be to get that signal out, right? So you have to do those things like that. So that's one step. And just to tell you, in order to get the first signal from an aggregate, it took about more than 1 year in this particular case. So you can see how challenging sometimes those things can be, because it's approaching a problem from different angles, right? But still, this is how you progress. And there's another very interesting example in the solar materials that I have shown you earlier. And that particular material was actually investigated for something else. So I was investigating it to find out what we call 3-photon absorption, right? 3-photon absorption. So I was repeating someone else's experiment to see whether I can get that same result, right? Which we always do before we do something else, right? And then when I was investigating that, we saw that the beam is being blocked by the molecules. So instead of looking at the fluorescence, we changed the experiment. I changed the experiment and measured how the beam goes through the material. And we realized that, okay, there's an interesting state in this particular molecule that is giving rise to this process called singlet fission. And that's a totally serendipitous finding. And just to let you know, like, I think I could mention about this, in that interviewing activity that Dr. Nayani was talking about in the introduction, we have some very interesting interviews going on. So in one of those interviews, Dr. Hema Karnadasa, she's now at Stanford. So this is basically where we upload those interviews. So in order to get inspiration, give me a second. So I'm going to, so this is the YouTube channel where we are really uploading these interviews. So in order to get some inspiration from real world scientists, Nobel laureates, and for example, now this Martin Karplus, he's a Nobel laureate. They are interviewed by fourth year undergraduate students. So you get to know, like, learn about a lot of interesting things that happen along their way. So, Hema Karnadasa, now she's actually at Stanford. She's in the Stanford chemistry department. And she explains that for about 5 years, she was doing an experiment and was trying to find something. And what happened was, this experiment didn't give the results she anticipated, but in the process, when on one day, she actually left this particular material in a sink, right? And on the second day, when she came back, she saw this material was bubbling. So instead of washing it away, she started investigating that, characterizing that. And from that, after about 5 years, she came up with a totally novel discovery, which helped her to publish about 2 or 3 Nature and Science papers. So you can see, how these things can, form different kinds of ramifications, different kinds of shoots, and based on that, your outline will also change, and a lot of other projects will also develop, and a lot of other papers also can develop. Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, then there are many questions. Before moving that, there's a special opportunity. So I would like to introduce you one of our past students who has earned her PhD from FGS. So I'm very proud. It gives me a great pleasure to read out her name, Dr. Malsha. It's time for you to share your experience with us.
Category as I did my PhD very closely. So today I will just explain the experience how I discovered the relationship between the ideas, right? Yes, I will briefly tell you, like the earlier panelists said, that first idea you can outline. So this is one big picture of the background that we thought of. My research was to develop a research technique based on the knowledge of the vernacular architecture in Sri Lanka. Therefore, first we observed the structures which existed, and one big question raised: how did these structures lasted this long? So, with this big picture, we started identifying